I'm going to walk you through how to find Earth Observatory for Kids through the Earth Observatory website. So here we are at the Earth Observatory website at earthobservatory.nasa.gov. And if you just scroll down, you'll find EO Kids. And we can click right on that, and it should take us to our website. So this is the website that it would pull you to. It's just basically a blog format, but the link to our issues, our newest issue will appear first. So this one's Smoky Skies and Satellites, which is our newest issue that we've just put out. You can either download the issue here by clicking on the link, or you can click on the image itself. Below that information with the little description there, you'll find different Earth Observatory articles that are actually highlighted in the issue. And if you're looking for different topics, you can find those here under recent issues, or you can scroll down and find all of them listed here. We have quite a few different topics that we've covered. And I'm going to walk you through a few of my favorites just to highlight some of the cool things that we've done. Now, I will point out that the last three that you'll see here are not the same format as the other issues. They are a much longer 16-page layout that we used to do, but it turned out it was really quite time-consuming and we couldn't get them out fast enough. So we've opted to go with a shorter format where we have an article and a story, or article and an activity, and pair them together instead of having a long list of different articles and a bunch of different activities grouped together. So these ones are great, but there are like 4 different activities and like 4 different articles in each of those. So if those are topics you want to do a deep dive into, there's quite a few things on landslides, freshwater, and urban heat islands. But these other topics about like phytoplankton, archaeology, ice. This one's a fun issue all about how remote sensing has changed over 60 years of looking at Earth from above. We talk a lot about vegetation and using infrared imagery to measure that vegetation, changes to our land, how we look at clouds from space, tracking different aerosols or pollution in space as well. Also, we look at geology and like glaciers. So we're doing a lot of things that you can see change on the landscape over time, or how we might see these different things that may not be so apparent from the surface. We also talk about different phenomena like the sun and seasons. So coming up on June 21st, we're looking again here at the summer solstice. So this is a really timely article to explain why we have the different seasons based on tilt. It's also one of our most popular, so you may find that one interesting. We also talk about Earth's orbit, again, the green up. We like to cover wildfires, apparently recently. This one's more about land cover, whereas our most recent one is more about the smoke transport. We also featured a few different scientists. This one was in an Earth Science Week toolkit that was sent out a couple years back. How we see different shapes on the ground from space. This one happens to be about farming, night vision, or the lights that you might see at night, which is pretty cool satellite imagery. Talk about the ozone hole or sea ice, peeking at penguin poop from space, which is a favorite of my children. How dunes are made, how barrier islands are made, and then this one's all about hurricanes. So those are some of the different topics that we've covered. We continue to add new topics to it. I know we're working on one about global warming, about how astronauts look at Earth, how dust is transported and covers the Earth. And those are just some of the new topics that are coming up too that are in progress. So I'm going to go through and show you the Smoky Skies and Satellites, which is our newest issue. I have to go back up here to the first page. So this is what it looks like when you download it. So you can print these, which is nice because if students don't have access to a computer or technology, you can send them in packets. I know this year has been quite a pivot for a lot of the way people teach. And this was actually, it was a nice resource for a few teachers that contacted me that were trying to put together science packets for their students that didn't have access to the internet in some rural districts. as well as some of the students that just didn't have access to technology for other barriers. So that's been one of the nice things about having it as this printable PDF. It can be sent electronically, or it can also be printed and enclosed. So as you can see, we use a lot of the beautiful Earth observatory imagery to try and talk about different topics in Earth science, and this one being smoke. And you can see that that's a very smoky coastal line there from 2020, which I remember quite well. I live out here in Portland, Oregon, and we see quite a few fires over the summer months. And you know, here again, we have some visualizations that have been used by Earth Observatory that we can use to then talk about how that smoke is transported across the Earth. You'll also find little factoids enclosed because they're fun, and it's nice to learn a little bit about cool little things that aren't necessarily a huge topic in and of itself, but add a little bit of interesting points to each article. And this one, again, it talks about, you know, smoke in your health, and a little bit about rain and where we find different satellite detections of fire. And then again, like for the 2020 fire season, I know we were in the 700s range out in Oregon where I was at during this fire season. So it was definitely not great. And this is just a really, you know, good opportunity to talk about these current events that children are experiencing, help them understand the science behind it. And often we find that when students know the science behind something, they understanding is comfort in a lot of ways. It makes it less intimidating of what's going on when they can have something that they can read about. So that was one of the reasons behind doing a wildfires issue in advance of this fire season. So the next page is the Data Viz, which is one of our activities that we do. Data Viz are typically a flip book where we will take a science visualization that would be in a video, for example, and use it to create a flip book. So right here, you can see they can just cut out each of those different frames and then clip them together with a binder clip to be able to make that. We'll include some extension activities if there is an opportunity to work within another group at NASA or another activity that could really expand. So that's just this one. I'm going to take you here to our peeking at penguins poop from space. And again, we have the nice satellite imagery. When we have an opportunity, we'll include scientists because they're cool and they make all of this happen. In this one, I just want to go down to the activity is a data detective. So we use the pixels of these different satellite data to be able to let kids interact with that kind of data. So whether it's looking at two images and the change over time and trying to calculate the percentage of change that has happened in an image, or in this one, they're actually being asked to color in the grid based on what the satellite detected. So if it the wavelengths came back and saying, oh, that one's pink, that means that there was guano there, the penguin poop, because penguin poop is pink. Now you know. And brown for the land, white for snow, blue for the ocean. And then after coloring that in, they can actually go through and figure out how many penguins there are on Darwin Island. So this is really reminiscent of what the scientists are actually doing using that satellite data. But it's a nice way of being able to interact with that real data to get that kind of information. Here we have shifting shapes of sandy scapes. This one's all about how sand dunes form. So this one just shows the different types of dunes and how they form based on the direction of the wind and the different landscapes that are there. So it's a nice way of being able to kind of go through and show how these sand dunes might look from space. And then if they happen to have dunes where they live or where they're visiting, they may be able to go out and actually identify them. Again, this one's a DIY science with the hands-on opportunity where we're asking them to actually go and create dunes in their own little sandbox with a hairdryer. This is that other one that I was talking about, all about that tilt, sun, and seasons. So this one is a really good opportunity for them to learn all about how we get those different seasons. And then there's the green up and brown down with the different seasons too, based on how the vegetation responds to the lack of sunlight. And this is a different type of activity, the maker corner activity, where we're all having them actually create something that is a model or something that they can make themselves. So this is one where they're actually creating shadows to calculate the noon sun angles, and then showing how that happens. And then there's an extension here where they're actually going to be taking a basketball to create the shadows, and you can see that shadows south of the equator versus north of the equator go different directions because of where the sun is, depending on the time of year. So those are the main ideas that we have with EO Kids. But beyond that, I want to show you one last thing, if I can. On some of the EO Kids issues, you can actually go to our YouTube page of our activities actually recorded on YouTube. So this is one that we made all about how your garden might grow, which actually asks kids to use their phone kind of like a satellite, or a digital camera like a satellite, to monitor change over time for a garden that they have planted.
Old MacDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. And today with NASA and EO Kids, we're gonna make an indoor farm. So get ready and get ready to get dirty. This activity comes from EO Kids, The Shape of Farming, Water for Crops. And you can read all about why there's different shapes of different crops if you've ever looked at them from an airplane above, or if you've ever looked at them from space. You can also see a bunch of different shapes. So feel free to read all about that in that issue. But along in that issue, at the end, there is the activity, our data viz, how does your garden grow? So we are going to do that activity today. All you need to do it are a few materials. First, an aluminum baking pan, kind of like you would make a lasagna to give somebody. And I like to use these. You can use other things as well. The reason I like this is because it's not going to make any of my pans dirty. So if I want to go and bake a cake, I'll still have pans to do that with. The other reason I like it is because often they come with their own clear top, which I can use like a greenhouse later. And I'm up in the northern latitude, so it's pretty cold here still. So it's nice to have something to kind of trap a little bit of that heat to help my garden grow. So the other thing that you're going to need are some seeds, a spray bottle, and potting soil. So to do this activity, we are going to take our potting soil and empty it into our pan. All right. Make sure to do this somewhere where it's okay if you spill a little bit of dirt, that it'll be easy to clean up. I'm going to spread my soil around in my pan. All right. And then, because I have 3 different seeds that I'm going to try and plant here, I'm going to take and divide them into 3 sections, so I know where I'm planting each one. So I take my seeds, I look at the back of the instructions, and tell me how far apart I'm supposed to plant them. So, and then I go ahead and plant them according to the instructions. Cover them up with a little bit of soil. And then I would do that for each of the different sections. When I'm done with that, I get to spray them and make it very, very, very wet, because those seeds will need to germinate and then grow. Now the next step is a great step too. we are going to take a digital camera, or just like a cell phone, and take a straight down picture of our crop every single day. Then, after they've sprouted, you can go back and make a flip book, a video, a GIF, whatever it is that you're trying to do, but you can see the transition from just brown dirt to a green land cover when your crops finally sprout. What does this have to do with NASA? Well, NASA has satellites that look down and monitor the greenness of our planet. So they actually look to see where crops are growing, where crops might be dying. Same thing with forests or other types of land cover that are vegetation. That way we can see how seasons are affecting our land cover. We can also see if there's anything that's changed from year to year, or if there's any climates that has influenced how things have changed. So we're always looking down, trying to check out how our crops are growing. And you can do the same using your cell phone, kind of like a satellite, to be able to monitor your crop at home. I hope you enjoyed this activity, and I hope you enjoy some others with Earth Observatory for Kids. Thanks for joining.